what happens sometimes is that you can substitute ground beef if you can't eat steak, or ground turkey, or ground chicken. So then that way you're able to get your protein, you're able to eat the food that you need, but you're able to chew it well, okay? So that's what we mean by green foods. You need to be able to eat it, digest it, and it goes through your system where you get all the benefits from it, okay? You need to be able to chew your food well in order to get the vitamins, the nutrients, and everything that you need. Another thing that happens with green foods, as we get older, we have a tendency to avoid some foods and we go to the softer foods. We eat things that don't require a lot of chewing, or like you do more white rice and do more pasta, and you do more soft foods because it's easier to digest. Well, what happens there, you're missing the fiber. When you eat the soft foods, you don't have the fiber that you need. Fiber is one of those components that you need to go through your body in order to help keep a healthy gut, to keep your healthy digestion, and also it travels through everywhere, through your colon and everything, in order to clean out all those waste products. You need fiber in order to help push through everything, especially if you have problems with cholesterol. Who's on cholesterol medicine? Okay. A lot of times you may have buildup of plaque and different things in your system. Well, you eat fiber, that can help to go through and act like a scrub brush in order to decrease some of that plaque. And then waste products, you need it to be able to go through and you be able to push it out the other end, okay? So that's why you need fiber. So the green foods, we want fiber, protein are the building blocks. They build up your the cells of your body. And as we get older, we need more protein. A lot of times we avoid it. You know, I was talking about steak. A lot of times we avoid it because we're not able to chew it up or digest it well. But what happens when you lose protein, the number one thing that happens, you start losing muscles. You start losing muscle mass. And you feel like you're weak. You used to be able to pick up something without a problem, and now you can't pick it up anymore. And that's because of loss of muscle. So you want to increase your protein intake to improve your muscle mass. All right? And also, especially if you have diabetes, you want to increase your protein because that helps to balance out your blood sugar. Protein is one of those things that does not cause your blood sugar to go up. So that's why you want to eat more protein. Now,
I just want to what all foods have protein in it? You know, what foods have protein?
Okay, like I said, meat.
Okay.
That's a high quality protein, and we're talking about ground meat, chicken, fish, pork, all of that's protein. They call it high quality protein. Now, beans are plant-based protein, okay? I know you frown at the beans. but some people have done away with meat in their diet and they're going to more plant-based diet. So they're doing beans to replace the meat. The only thing about the beans, it's not a complete protein, so you have to eat more in order to get the amount of protein that you need. Okay? And some of the other things, like I said, fish. And when we're talking about fish, I'm not talking about catfish. I'm not talking about the fried catfish, okay? Talking about the The cold water fish like salmon, mackerel, tuna, different fish like that, the fatty fish, because it has a good amount of protein, but also it gives you healthy fat. How many times have they told you, well, you need to decrease the amount of fat in your diet? But the thing is, your body needs fat in order to help nourish your brain cells, to help your body make hormones, to help your body build up new cells. So we need fat in our diet. When you eliminate all fat out of your diet, what happens, you ever eat fat-free something? What does it taste like? Exactly. Fat adds flavor to food. That's the other thing. So, but you need a balance of healthy fats along with animal fats. And the healthy fats are olive oil, coconut oil, olives, and the fish we talked about, the fatty fish. Those are healthy fats, all right? So those are the things that we need. And rule of thumb, fish, you would like to have maybe like 2 servings a week. That would be an adequate amount in order to add the healthy fat to your diet and also the protein. Tuna, salmon, and when you think about that, you say, well, it really costs a lot. Not if you get the canned tuna and the canned salmon, that's cheaper. And it's just as healthy. All right? So those are some little tips that you can do in order to stay budget friendly, but still get the healthy foods that you need. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've always been told that coconut in any situation was not good for my blood sugar. Is that correct? Because I love coconut juice.
You love coconut what?
Any kind of coconut juice or whatever.
Okay. Now, coconut oil is healthy.
It is?
Yes. But use it within moderation. Okay, you can use too much of anything. But like if you use coconut oil in order to cook with, you can use a tablespoon, half a tablespoon, and whatever, okay? But you want the healthier one. They do have, I'm trying to think. Okay, but like I said, the coconut oil is healthy. Coconut, you were talking about the coconut water or coconut juice or what? Okay, the coconut water, especially now that the weather's getting ready to be warmer, to avoid dehydration, coconut water is a good substitute in order to reverse dehydration. Now, okay, listen. If you have diabetes, you need to look at your food label and look at the amount of sugar that's in the coconut water. You want the coconut water that does not have any added sugar to it. All right? But as long as it doesn't have any added sugar, it is good to rehydrate or good to add fluid back in your body. Okay? Okay, that was a good question. So like I said, olive oil. Okay, you may see flaxseed, ground flaxseed or regular flaxseed. That's another healthy fat that you can use. The ground flaxseed, you can take a spoon of that and pour it over, sprinkle it over a salad or sprinkle it on vegetables or whatever in order to add healthy fat to your diet.
Okay, what do walnuts and overnuts and all that?
Those are healthy fats. The nuts are good for healthy fats, to add healthy fats to your diet. And again, we talk about, are you able to chew them up? Are you able to eat them? But, and then also the amount. If you can get like a handful of nuts once a day, twice a day, that's good. Okay? But the walnuts, even pecans, almonds, cashews, I'm trying to think another one. Now, a lot of times people put peanuts in that category, but peanuts aren't really a tree nut. Where do the peanuts come from? How are they grown? In the ground, right. They're in the class of legumes. They're in the class of beans. Even though we call them a nut, it's really a bean. It comes from the ground. Brazil nuts, that's another good one.
Does it matter whether the nuts are salty or not?
Yeah, it does. You want the natural nuts. You want the whole natural nuts, the raw nuts. You want to avoid the salt because of your blood pressure.
What about light and salty?
You want to avoid the salt. Now, if you get the raw nuts and you can roast them yourself in the oven, you could lightly sprinkle. And I do not recommend table salt, okay? The iodized table salt, because it's stripped of everything else. If you use like the sea salt or the Himalayan pink salt, those have all the other minerals and everything added with it, okay? And salt really is one of those things, it's still kind of cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find a bag of salt at Dollar Tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the green foods are the ones that you can eat regularly that don't cause a problem. Now we're going to talk a little bit about portion size in a minute. But the green foods, the green light foods, the protein. Okay, we didn't talk about carbohydrates. We talked about fats, we talked about protein. We need to talk about carbohydrates because carbohydrates are needed in order to nourish your brain, in order to nourish your muscles, and in order to nourish your organs in your body. Now, you've heard people are going low carb, no carb. It all depends on what type of carb that you eat. You have starchy and you have non-starchy. Can you tell me an example of starchy carbs? Potatoes. Rice. Macaroni. Okay. They classify green peas as a starchy carb. Yeah. And corn. Okay. Now, non-starchy carbs will be the collards, your lettuces, all your green vegetables, your yellow squash, the summer squash, the zucchini, radishes, tomatoes, all of those are non-starchy carbs. So you see, they're all carbohydrates. It's just there's different classes. And I'm not saying to eliminate any of them. The thing is, you have to monitor the size of it. Remember, I told you before, nothing is off limits. You just have to limit the amount. All right, and it all depends on how do you gauge if you need to limit some foods. What's the number one thing you should look at if you have diabetes? Your blood sugar. You need to eat according to your blood sugar. If you see that you ate something and your blood sugar jumped up, that means, oops, I need to back off and not eat as much. Another thing that helps, say like you really want some mashed potatoes. Easter's coming, Easter dinner. I really would like to have some mashed potatoes. The thing about it is, I'm not saying don't eat them, but pair it, combine your foods with something else healthy. Like combine it with the protein. If you're having ham or what's another meat that you have for Easter? Roast beef. So that helps balance it out. And then also with your non-starchy vegetable. So you can have your greens, your string beans.
Sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes, that's a healthy starchy carb, but again, you want to balance it out. You want to combine your foods. So if you combine it just right, and we're going to talk about that in a second, if you combine them just right, it'll keep that blood sugar down. Okay? So the yellow foods will be those foods that you eat with caution. So that would be your starchy carbs. Okay? Now the other thing is, you want to make sure that you have your fats included with your meal. You want to make sure that you have your healthy fat because, I said, fat adds flavor, but also what happens, it takes the body longer to break it down. So you stay fuller longer. So if you eat a good balanced meal, you won't be hungry in the next hour or so. It will keep you nice and full and satisfied for several hours, okay? And then that way, it gives your body a chance to digest your food, keep your blood sugar nice and stable. See, that's the other thing we want to look at. Instead of the blood sugar doing like this, we would like it to do more like this. It's not going to stay exactly the same the entire time, but we want to limit the amount of spikes. All right? So that brings us to the red foods. To the red light foods. Can you think of some foods that we would want to put in the red light area? Beets? No. No, red light. Things that you really need to limit the amount.
Cakes.
Huh?
Cakes.
Cake. Okay, you said beets. I'm going to put beets over here in the green. Okay?
Oh,
What do you say?
oh,
Pork.
yeah, all meat.
It all depends. It all depends on the amount. All right? If that's your protein of choice, but you need to watch the amount and the type, because if you're eating a pork loin roast, which doesn't have much fat, that's a healthy fat. I mean, it's a healthy protein. But if you're eating ribs or the fatty pork chops, that's more fat. So again, you need to watch the amount. Okay? So I would put that more in the yellow section. Okay?
Where will you put the bread?
Bread, I would put that in the, all depends on how much you eat. Okay? If that can be either red or yellow. What type of bread?
I love ice cream.
Hmm?
I said whole wheat.
You said whole wheat?
100% whole wheat.
Okay. I would put that in between. You said ice cream? Okay. Why would you say ice cream?
That's my sleeping pill. I can't sleep without.
Okay, the ice cream has the sugar, true enough, but it has the fat too. So I would put it, you can eat it, and see if you look under the red light foods, foods that you can't, it said foods that you can't eat moderately or sanely. That means if you can't just, like the old commercial for Jay's potato chips, can't just eat one.
What about banana pudding?
Banana pudding, I would put that under red light too. You know, we talked about the carbohydrates, we talked about the starchy carbohydrates, we talked about the non-starchy, but then you have what we call the simple carbohydrates. And those are the ones that's high in sugar that will cause your blood sugar to spike. Now, am I saying you can't eat it? Remember, let's go back to the food combinations and combining our foods. If you have had a meal, if you ate your protein, your vegetables, your healthy fats, you can eat some dessert because you have food in your stomach in order to absorb some of that sugar. And the other thing is, if you full from your meal, you're not going to need as much. So instead of eating, like my husband likes to do, a big bowl of ice cream like that, you can just have a little cup and you'll be satisfied. Whereas if you wait until after your meal, you wait a couple hours after you eat, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to go eat dessert. That's when you're in danger of overeating and causing your blood sugar to spike. Rule of thumb, it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours for your food to digest. So if you wait after then, and then you eat something that you know is good, that you like to eat it, but it's not that good for you, that's when you're going to run into some problems. So the best rule is to eat it right after you eat your meal. So then that way you can kind of gauge how much you eat and leave room for your dessert. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between that whole grain bread and whole grain wheat?
Okay. Remember last time I talked about the devil's in the details? You have to look in the ingredient label. You don't look at just the nutritional label, you look at the ingredients. And if in the first 4 ingredients it has bleached or refined flour, that means that all the healthy stuff has been stripped out of it. So you want something that says whole grain or whole wheat. Because the thing is the fiber. Again, we talked about we want to keep the fiber in our diet. So that's the purpose of it. You want to eat the bread that has the fiber added to it. It has the healthy parts still with it. Whereas if you eat the white bread, everything's been stripped out of it.
That's the same as with white rice and brown rice.
Right. The fiber part.
Well, like you said, like even with the whole wheat and bread, you still have to make sure, like you said, to look on the bag. But
Yeah.
sometimes they still say bleach.
Right. And, sometimes they may add a little bit of molasses in there or something in order to keep the color in. So that's why I say the devil's in the details. You got to look at the small print.
Make sure it says unbleached.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I'm not going to rain on your parade saying that you can never have dessert. No. Okay. You can have it, but timing and the amount is the important thing. And there's one thing that I know I was looking at this and I said, I'm missing something. Can somebody tell me what I'm missing?
Fruits.
Exactly. Fruit. Fruit is Fruit is a carbohydrate. Now, the thing about fruit, it all depends on your blood sugars. Again, you want to monitor your blood sugar. The best fruits for people with diabetes are the berries. Strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, because they're higher in fiber and they're lower in sugar. Apples and pears, they're fine too. And then the other fruits, they're still okay. You just have to watch the amount. Watch the amount. Some people will say, well, bananas are off limits. No, they're not off limits, because a lot of times you need bananas in order to add potassium to your diet. But, sometimes if you have those big, huge, gargantuan ones, you only need to eat a half one as opposed to a whole one. Okay? All right. I have this other sheet I want to pass out to you. Now, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And here's just a visual of what you can do with your plate. You need some more? You got enough? I got some more over here if you need. Because you don't have one. Okay. Now, this is an ideal balanced plate. Now, if you are struggling keeping your blood sugar stable, or you want to watch your weight, the size of your plate matters. Instead of eating out of a 12-inch dinner plate, you can eat off of an 8-inch plate. And the reason you want to do that, because why? If you eat off of a smaller plate. Right. And then the other thing is, it's a Jedi mind trick too. If you look at it, you don't feel like you're deprived. If you put a small amount of food on a big plate, what do you think? I'm trying to starve me. But if you put your food on a smaller plate and it fills the smaller plate up, you say, okay, I'm in good shape. All right?
But you still can't go like a mountain up high.
No, don't go up high. Where they used to say need sad boys. My husband's family, we used to get together for holidays. And we would go to one sister's house, and she had these styrofoam platters that we would get our food on. That was the worst thing in the world, because you would fill it up. And then afterwards, it's like you feel miserable. Whereas if you just stick to a smaller plate, you don't feel miserable, okay? I had started out about what is good nutrition. One of the things about good nutrition is that you're eating the right amount of food at the right time. You don't feel like you're stuffed. You feel like, okay, I'm satisfied, but I can still move around. I'm satisfied, and I can still laugh and talk to my friends. I'm satisfied, and I can go for a walk. Whereas if you stuffed, I'm miserable, and I'm gonna go lay down and take a nap. So you're just compounding the problem. It's bad enough you stuffed yourself with all that food, but then you're gonna lay down and rest too. No. So that's why we want to watch the amounts that we eat. And when you look at the plate, you see that there's not a food group eliminated. It covers every food group. So that's the benefit of looking at that. So, and there's some tips at the bottom. Number one thing is to eat slowly. when we eat fast, we don't get a chance to taste our food. We don't get a chance to really make our food small enough in order to swallow it where we're able to get all the nutrients from it. And I talked about healthy digestion. Healthy digestion starts in the mouth. So you want to be able to chew your food adequately in order to get all the nutrients out of it. Also, you want to avoid as much processed food as much as possible. And what do you mean by highly processed food? The stuff that comes out of a box, like Hamburger Helper or the frozen TV dinners that, you know, the picture looks pretty, but when you take it out the box, you look at it and say, that doesn't look anything like that picture does. Because you can't, it's like, okay, that doesn't look like that. And what happens with processed food, in order to make it cook faster and quicker and extend the shelf life, they remove all of the nutrients, they remove a lot of the healthy stuff, and they put in additives and preservatives in order to prolong the shelf life. But the thing is, that has taken away all the nutritional value. That's taken away all the healthy stuff. So that's why we want to avoid the highly processed food. Now, processed foods are not all that bad, okay? When you go to the grocery store and you go to the produce section and you see the chopped up onions and bell peppers, that's processed, but it's minimally processed, so that's okay. The bag salad, you know, that has everything in it, that's processed, but that's okay. Now, the highly processed stuff, like I said, it's the things that it doesn't look like what it's supposed to look like. All right. Also, you want to get the healthiest food possible and I always want to stress the food that you can afford. We don't want to blow your budget on getting something. You know, you don't want to waste all your money on things, especially if you're not going to eat it. You want to buy enough stuff that you can consume in a few days or a week. And again, it talks about eating on a smaller plate. Now, with your meal, what kind of beverages do you like to drink?
What did you say?
What kind of beverages? What do you want to drink with your meals?
Tea.
Tea? What kind of tea?
Unsweet.
Oh, unsweet. You do the unsweet, okay.
Oh, you said cheese?
No, tea.
Tea?
Tea. She said tea.
Okay, I don't understand sometimes.
Okay.
Caffeine free. So.
Caffeine free. Okay, I know I had the question earlier about green tea. Green tea is healthy for you, okay? The thing about green tea, it has the components in order to help with metabolism and also to help lower the blood sugar, okay? The only thing about green tea, it does contain caffeine, and if you're sensitive to caffeine, you have to watch the time that you drink it. But if you're not sensitive to it, that's fine. All right? But there's all kinds of teas on the market now, different kind of herbal teas that are really good for you, that really promote health. So those are some things that you can look at, as opposed to, there's nothing the matter with regular tea, with the black tea. But sometimes, you think about like the peppermint tea, or if you have trouble sleeping, the chamomile tea. The peppermint tea and the different ones like that are good for digestion, especially if you have problems with indigestion or reflux. A cup of peppermint tea or ginger tea will help with that. Okay? All right. Anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
My son has always worried about me using Splendor and that kind of thing that he doesn't believe it's good for me.
I'm not a fan of of sweeteners, of artificial sweeteners, because of the chemicals that's in them. Now, there are some things that are better for you that will give you the sweetener, but it doesn't have the chemicals. And monk fruit, MONKFRUIT, monk fruit, that is a good sweetener, and it doesn't have the chemicals in it. Also stevia, but you want the plain stevia. You don't want the one that has the other things added to it. Now you have to be mindful of the amounts of those that you eat, that you consume, because like you frowned up when I said stevia, yeah, it does have a taste to it. Okay, the monk fruit doesn't have the taste. Now there are some other there's some other sweeteners on the market, but you have to be careful of them, especially like the sugar-free cookies and things like that. It has a sweetener in it, but it's the same sweetener that they use in laxatives. So if you eat too much of that, it's going to take you to the bathroom. So you have to be careful about the sweetener.
Honey would be good, I said.
Honey is, it's in the same category with sugar, all right? So.
I wouldn't, but he said that would be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if you have trouble with your blood sugars.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, if you have trouble with your blood sugars, I would avoid the honey as much as possible. But if you don't have problems with your blood sugar, a teaspoon, just a little bit. You don't need much. All right? I had a patient that would come to the clinic, and every time I check her blood sugar, it was high. And I was like, she said, I'm eating the right things. So my nurse came and told me, she said, you know what? Every time she brings in her sample, it's always in one of the honey bears. So I asked her, I said, are you eating honey? And she said, oh yeah, I put honey in my coffee every morning. And so that's what was going on with her blood sugar. So you have to be mindful of that. Okay? Yes, sir.
What kind of snacks is best?
What kind of what?
Snacks.
Snacks.
Oh, snacks. Okay. Nuts. Nuts are good. Fruits are good. Cheese. Cheese. Yeah.
Don't take that away from peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
I have my cheese.
Yeah.
No cheese?
Huh?
I didn't know cheese.
Yeah, the thing is you have to watch the amount. But if it's a snack, it's okay to have some cheese and then say like you have a half apple and you have about 2 or 3 slices of cheese, and that should satisfy, and drink your green tea. You should be good to go. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Was this helpful? You get any?
Yes, I'm gonna ask one more question.
Mm-hmm.
When you about the protein, because you said it's good to have that, but how many times a day? How much? I don't know. I missed that part.
Okay, I didn't, and I thank you. Okay, you need protein at every meal. Like I said, as we get older, we need protein. So think about the size of a deck of cards or the size of the palm of your hand. That's how much protein you should have with every meal. Okay? Including breakfast. Now, I didn't put eggs down here, but eggs is another source of protein, which is good. Okay? And just because things have been categorized as breakfast food or dinner food, it really doesn't matter. It's all personal preference. My husband has this thing, he won't eat grits after 10:30 in the morning. And I said, what difference does it make? He will not eat grits after 10:30. Forget it about shrimp and grits. He won't. But anyway, it's okay. Say like if you had chicken the night before, along with your dinner, and then the next morning it's time to eat. What am I going to eat? You can slice off some of that chicken and add some eggs or some fruit or whatever in order to go along with it. Another thing I didn't talk about is avocado. Avocado is a healthy fat. It's considered a fruit. People either like it or they hate it. But avocado is one of those things that it really doesn't have a taste to it. It whatever you add it to,
It's good.
yeah, it is good. And whatever you add it to, it takes on the flavor. Avocado toast is one of the rages now. So you take some avocado and put it on a piece of toast, spread it instead of butter, and
I
that's.
love avocado. I was surprised, I found some in the frozen the other day. First, I didn't know they're frozen avocado,
Yeah.
but I did, I found some the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and I bought it just in little hunks. Now, I love avocado, I get a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. It's really good in salad. Yeah.
A lot of people do like the deviled eggs,
Mm-hmm.
but they do the avocado
Right.
in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Instead of mayonnaise. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Any other questions? And you found this helpful? I did my job.
Yes.
All right. That's what I want to hear.
What grits